Have you ever wondered why there are women who seem to make no effort to compete, who do not chase after anything, and yet still become the center of love, of opportunity, of admiration? While many tirelessly pursue happiness until they are exhausted, somewhere out there are women who simply sit still, and life finds its way to them. This paradox may sound unbelievable, but Carl Jung had already perceived it. When you stop craving possession, when you stop straining to control, you become whole. And it is precisely that wholeness that makes everything want to return to you. Like a candle that does not rush to invite anyone, yet its light naturally attracts those lost in the dark. The answer lies not in tricks or techniques, but in transformation from within yourself. In today's video, we will dive into 7 wondrous paradoxes that Carl Jung once unveiled. Principles that show, precisely when you stop craving, stop chasing, love, opportunity, and even the meaning of life will come to you on their own. Because everything wants you when you want nothing. Everything begins to turn toward you the moment you are at peace enough to no longer need to possess them. Are you ready to embark on this paradoxical yet fascinating journey? Number 1. When you let go of the desire to control. Have you ever noticed that the more you try to hold on to something, the easier it slips away? A woman in love often makes this mistake. When her heart stirs, the instinct to control arises. She wants to know where he is, what he is thinking, whether he still loves her. Instead of allowing love to breathe, she tightens her grip. But like holding sand, the tighter the grasp, the faster it slips away. And in the end, what she feared most, loss, becomes reality. We often think that to protect happiness, we must control it. But Jung pointed out that the craving for control is actually the shadow of the ego. It does not come from love, but from fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of not being enough, fear of being replaced. When this fear hides in the unconscious, it begins to dictate behavior. The woman thinks she is loving, but in truth, she is trying to possess, and love gradually turns into chains. I once knew a successful woman. Her career was stable, her friends adored her, but in love, she was fragile. She loved him so much that she wanted him entirely for herself. She read every message, grew jealous even of the smiles he gave his colleagues. She thought control would bring her peace of mind, but in truth, the more she controlled, the more she lost trust, lost freedom. At first, the man loved her too, but over time, he felt suffocated. When he left, she finally understood. What pushed him away was not that she loved too little, but that she wanted too much to control love. Letting go, according to Jung, is not losing. It does not mean abandoning. Letting go is acknowledging that there are things beyond our reach, and instead of straining, we allow them to flow naturally. Like a woman tending a garden, she can sow seeds, water them, but she cannot command flowers to bloom on a certain day. If she worries every minute, all she gains is disappointment. But when she is patient, letting nature do its part, the garden blossoms. There is a truth many women forget. Men are not attracted to someone who always controls, but to a woman who knows how to release. A woman who can smile when he replies late, continue her own life when he is busy, trust without interrogation. In this release, she sends out an invisible message. I am whole. I love, but I do not need control for love to exist. And that very thing makes the man want to stay. When she no longer tries to hold tightly, love naturally returns. This is life's paradox. Everything comes when you stop craving to possess it. Many women enter love with wounds, having been betrayed, abandoned. These memories become the shadow Jung spoke of, and instead of facing them to heal, they cover them with control. But the shadow cannot be hidden. It reveals itself in every jealous rage, in every pressing question. Only when a woman dares to face it does she learn to release. She realizes control is never the solution. Only trust and the courage to let go lead her to peace. Picture a woman swimming in the sea. If she panics, thrashes, she will soon exhaust herself. But if she relaxes, letting her body float, the water lifts her up. Life is the same. When you release, you are lifted by a current larger than yourself. I have met women who never bother proving their worth. They do not need to control the man who loves them. Instead, they read books, sit in warm cafes, learn new skills, or watch the sunrise. And paradoxically, they are the ones men cannot leave. Their freedom and wholeness become an invisible magnet no one can resist. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darknesses of other people." When a woman dares to face her own shadow, her fear of abandonment, her insecurity, her craving for control, she truly liberates herself. And once she is free, she is no longer bound by fear, but lives in freedom. Her love then becomes a gift, not a chain. Letting go, therefore, is not to lose. Letting go is to live. It is courage when a woman knows she does not need to hold everything in order to still be fully present. And precisely in the moment she releases, she becomes more magnetic than ever. Number 2. The paradox of attraction. Silence creates echoes. After learning to release the desire for control, a woman enters another state, presence. And from this state, a fascinating paradox appears. The quieter she is, the more she resonates in the hearts of others. In a noisy world, where everyone tries to prove themselves more interesting, more outstanding, silence becomes rare and magnetic. A woman does not need to compete, to interject in every conversation, to use too many words to assert herself. It is precisely her quiet confidence that turns heads toward her. Like in a piece of music, sometimes the pause is what makes the melody unforgettable. I once attended a small gathering where many beautiful women, dressed to impress, chatted lively to stand out. Yet one woman chose to sit quietly, only smiling and listening. She did not try to prove herself intelligent or interesting. She simply was, her eyes gentle, her gestures slow, unhurried to interject. Strangely, when the evening ended, people remembered her most. Some even approached her, drawn to the space she carried, a peace that made them want to stay near. That is the power of silence. It does not boast, but it seeps deeply. Carl Jung explained that when the ego is reconciled with the shadow, one no longer needs to perform. Silence is no longer forced or timid, but the natural outcome of inner wholeness. Such a woman is not silent because she has nothing to say, but because she does not need to say too much to be seen. She already is herself, and that presence is the strongest statement. Jung once wrote, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living." And a woman's silence is just such a fount of healing, a space that makes others feel safe and want to draw near. I often think of the moon on the night sky. It makes no sound, does not shout for attention. It simply shines quietly, and precisely in its quietness, it is gazed upon from everywhere. Women are the same. When they stop trying to prove, their energy becomes pure and naturally resonates. In truth, such silence is not easily achieved. Many women carrying insecurity feel they must speak, prove, do something to secure their place in others' hearts. But the more they try, the less magnetic they become. Conversely, when a woman dares to step back, choosing stillness, she shows she is strong enough not to compete, and that makes her stand out above all. This magnetic silence also comes from listening. A silent woman is not empty, but spacious enough to receive others. A man sitting beside her feels safe because he is heard, seen, understood. And in a rushed world, that is what everyone longs for. A man once shared that what he could not forget about the woman he loved was not her words, but the moments she sat silently beside him. In her silence, he felt peace, as if he were home. And precisely when she did not need to do anything to keep him, he felt he wanted to stay more. The truth is, this magnetism only arises when the woman truly releases the need for attention. If silence is only a mask for praise, it will be awkward. But when silence comes from a full soul, it becomes a field of energy. Jung called this the state where the ego is reconciled with the shadow, no longer fragmented, no longer conflicted. When you need nothing, you have everything. This paradox reminds us that true attraction lies not in noise, but in stillness. In her silence, a woman sends a powerful message. I do not need to prove, because I already am myself. And that message, without words, compels others to listen. When you let go of the urge to impress, you become most impressive. When you stop filling space with words, that very space becomes an echo. And this is the spirit of the saying, everything wants you when you want nothing. And perhaps you too have experienced such a moment once, when you were silent, not trying to prove, yet remembered more than anyone else. If you have, share your story in the comments. Who knows, your silence may inspire someone still chasing after noise in search of echoes. Number 3. The freedom of no longer needing recognition. After you recognize the paradoxical power of silence, that sometimes saying nothing echoes more than any words, you begin to see a deeper truth. What makes a woman truly magnetic does not lie in the admiring eyes of others, but in her ability to live freely, no longer needing recognition. The very moment you stop living to please someone, you step out of the invisible shackles that society calls the persona, the mask we wear to be praised, to be accepted. From childhood, most women are taught that their value lies in being recognized by others. A good girl must study well to please her parents, must behave properly to be praised by her teachers, must look beautiful to be noticed by her peers. As they grow, this pressure transforms into expectations from lovers, colleagues, society. And so, many women spend their whole lives running after others' eyes, until they lose the ability to ask themselves, who am I if I don't have to please anyone? Carl Jung believed that the persona is the social mask, necessary for adaptation, but if we identify with it, we drift far from our true self. When a woman lives only for approval, she no longer lives for herself. Every compliment becomes a rope binding her. Every criticism becomes a source of fear. And the paradox is, the more she craves recognition, the more she loses her true magnetism. I once knew a woman working in the arts. She was very talented, but for years She only created what the audience wanted to hear, to see. She tried to follow trends, reshape herself to please the masses. Her work was praised, she received applause, yet deep inside, she felt empty. The more recognition she gained, the less joy she found in creating. Only after a life-turning crisis, when the praise suddenly disappeared, did she dare to live authentically. She began writing what she wanted to write, painting what she wanted to paint, without caring whether anyone applauded. And paradoxically, that was when she truly touched hearts. People felt the authenticity, the freedom in every line of her work. The magnetism no longer came from applause, but from her courage to be real. A bird that sings only to be praised will sound forced, but if it sings because it cannot help but sing, because it is breath, instinct, its song resonates and pierces deep. A woman is the same. When she creates, loves, lives fully not to be seen, but because it is her nature, her energy becomes the most magnetic. When you live authentically, you no longer need to prove your worth. Others' eyes are only reflections, not measures. You become the center of yourself. And the paradox is, when you stop seeking recognition, you receive the deepest recognition. People are drawn to a free soul because they crave the liberation they themselves have not dared to embrace. In many relationships, a woman easily loses herself by focusing too much on pleasing a man. She sacrifices, she strains, she abandons her own joy to gain his approval. But then, love becomes fatigue. Conversely, a woman who holds to herself, who does not chase after praise, earns a man's respect and desire to stay. Because in her, he sees freedom, something he cannot control but cannot leave. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." When a woman lets go of the need for recognition, she grants herself that privilege. She is no longer a mask, no longer a product of others' expectations, but a free being. And that freedom is the root of magnetism. In modern society, where everyone chases likes, numbers, and compliments, this freedom is even rarer. A woman who does not need to flaunt her life, who does not prove herself through pictures, who does not seek constant praise, radiates stronger magnetism than any. Her inner peace becomes the luxury the world lacks. This is the paradox Jung wanted us to remember. When you no longer need recognition, you become the most recognized presence. When you stop chasing attention, you make others unable to look away. When you no longer crave to have, you end up having everything. Number 4. When you stop chasing, everything finds its way to you. When a woman learns to live without needing recognition, she begins to perceive an even deeper principle. The more you chase something, the further it runs. But when you release, when you stop pursuing, everything naturally finds its way to you. This is life's paradox, and one of the hardest truths of the soul's journey. In the Bible, there is a beautiful image, the story of the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve, in their innocence, not yet driven by possession, lived in harmony with the universe. But when the desire for control, the craving to know and have everything arose, symbolized by eating the forbidden fruit, they immediately lost their original freedom. What they chased became the cause of their fall. This is the very principle Jung often emphasized. What is forced resists, but what is free naturally blossoms. In relationships, this principle is especially clear. A woman who does not chase, beg, or bind often makes a man feel free. And it is precisely this freedom that makes him want to return, to stay long-term. In truth, this magnetism comes from an inner space the woman knows how to create. When she is no longer ruled by fear, she allows the man to feel comfortable being himself. With her, he does not need to prove or defend. It is this sense of breathing freely that makes him long to stay. Jung stressed that real love only blooms when it is allowed to be free, not forced. Like a butterfly, if you try to hold it in your hand, it dies. But if you let it fly free, it may circle back, even land on your shoulder of its own accord. Interestingly, this principle applies not only to love, but also to work and opportunity. When you desperately seek a job, you are often rejected. But when you return, do well in even the smallest tasks, and focus on growth rather than chasing, many achievements suddenly appear. Opportunities are like doors. If you pound frantically, they remain closed. But if you take time to sharpen your inner strength, a door will naturally open, sometimes one you never expected. A young woman in the creative field once shared her story. At first, she desired success so much that she worked day and night, flooding her boss with ideas, just to be noticed. But the more she worked, the more drained she became, and her ideas turned forced, lifeless. One day, after collapsing from exhaustion, she decided to stop. Instead of forcing herself, she traveled alone, read books, sat quietly in cafes. Strangely, in those doing-nothing days, her best ideas appeared. When she stopped chasing success, success found her, her project was unexpectedly chosen, and for the first time, she felt creativity was true joy, not a burden. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists." And conversely, what you release often becomes yours in the most natural way. When you stop forcing love, love blossoms. When you stop chasing creativity, creativity flows in. When you stop seeking opportunity, opportunity arises at the exact moment you are ready. This paradox is hard to believe, for everyone thinks, to have, you must chase. But psychologically, it is the opposite. The more you chase, the further it goes. The more you release, the closer it comes. This does not mean you stop making effort, but that effort should not become desperation, compulsion. You sow seeds, you care for them, but you cannot force them to sprout immediately. When you stop craving to control results, you allow seeds to bloom in their own time. And this is one of Jung's core messages. When you no longer crave possession, you become whole. And that wholeness draws everything to you. Because when you pause, you allow life to come. When you stop making urgent demands, you create a space, and that space becomes an invitation for love, for opportunity, for the missing pieces you need on your journey. Sometimes, what you seek is not lost, but waiting for you to be still so it can find its way back. After understanding that love, opportunity, and creativity only truly come when you stop chasing them, in the next part, we will dive deeper into another layer of meaning, the state of non-attachment, where peace no longer comes from adding more, but from the ability to live free and full in this very moment. Number 5. When you reach the state of non-attachment, peace that arises from within. There is a threshold that every woman will reach on her inner journey, the moment she no longer lives in "I must have," but quietly abides in "I am enough." That is the essence of non-attachment, when joy no longer depends on external additions, but arises from within. In this state, happiness does not need to be chased, for it already exists in each breath, each simple moment. In the modern world, women are often caught in the vortex of craving. You must have a better job, a bigger house, the ideal man. These must-haves become burdens, never allowing the heart to rest. But when a woman learns to release, she realizes joy does not lie in what she owns, but in the ability to savor what she already has. Carl Jung once said that the strongest chains binding people do not come from outside, but from the unconscious. It is the unacknowledged cravings, fear of not being enough, fear of being left behind, obsession with proving, that become shackles. Jung emphasized, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. And when you find the courage to release craving, those chains dissolve, peace reveals itself. I remember a woman in her 40s whom I once met. She had chased ambition her whole youth, working tirelessly to climb high. She thought happiness would come once she reached a certain milestone, but each rung she climbed left her emptier. Until one afternoon, sitting in her small kitchen, drinking tea with her husband and son, she laughed as she realized this was what she had missed. Peace was not in a bigger house, a fancier car, but in feeling whole in her family's arms. From that day, she stopped chasing recognition. She still worked, but no longer tied her worth to titles or praise. And the moment she stopped craving, she found peace and even greater respect. The woman in the story did not abandon effort, but abandoned dependence on outcomes. That is the core of non-attachment. You still sow seeds, but do not force an immediate harvest. You still love, but do not turn love into a transaction. You still work, but do not let titles define you. And when there is no longer, I must have, you open a space for joy to arise on its own. The magnetism of a woman who has reached non-attachment comes from her inner freedom. Others feel she does not demand, does not impose, does not turn relationships into tug-of-war, and that makes them want to come closer. Like standing before a clear spring, it does not try to attract, but everyone who passes stops to drink, to see themselves in its pure water. At a deeper level, this release is the journey of connecting with the self. Jung believed that when people stop identifying with the persona and dare to face the shadow, they find the self, their most whole state. A woman does not need craving because she realizes she is already enough. Joy does not come from adding, but from seeing that even in simplicity, there is abundance. You can feel it in moments that seem small, but are profoundly moving. A morning walk in the park, each breath opening a door, letting sunlight touch your skin and remind you that life is flowing. An afternoon by the window with a book, a breeze slipping in, not only cooling you, but whispering you need nothing more to be whole. An evening listening to your child chatter about school, time seeming to pause, and in that moment, you realize happiness is not far away, but in being fully present with what you love. These moments need no display, no proof, yet they shine with a deep peace the world is still chasing. Non-attachment is not giving up. It is the peak of freedom. When you are no longer enslaved by desire, you can love without binding, give without calculation, live without fear. And then you embody peace, the rarest thing everyone is seeking. Number 6. When you allow space, the universe fills it. When a woman has tasted the peace of I am enough, she begins to understand another secret of life. True happiness and magnetism do not come from filling every space, but from daring to leave space for the universe to fill. People are often afraid of emptiness. We play music the moment we step into a silent room, scroll phones in brief free minutes, talk endlessly in conversation to avoid pauses. But Jung once wrote, "Solitude is for me a fount of healing which makes my life worth living. Talking is often torment for me, and I need many days of silence to recover from the futility of words. Solitude is a source of healing that makes life worth living. The soul needs its own secret space, free from noise and expectation, where life can quietly enter. Emptiness is not absence, but invitation. Imagine a garden. If you cram it with plants, stuffing every seed into one patch of soil, nothing grows healthy. But when you leave space, sunlight, air, and water enter, and plants have room to thrive. A woman's life is the same. When she keeps space, love, opportunity, creativity find her, like rain finding thirsty earth. One woman always believed she had to stay busy, always show up, always talk a lot to succeed. She packed her schedule with work, her heart with fleeting relationships, but the fuller she packed, the emptier she felt. One day, after a draining breakup, she chose differently. She skipped events, stopped talking incessantly, stopped rushing into dates. Instead, she spent evenings in silence, cooking small meals, listening to gentle music, watching the city from her balcony. Unexpectedly, when she stopped forcing, she was invited into important projects. Colleagues listened more, and she met the man who later became her husband. The space she once feared became a bridge for the new to arrive. A woman who preserves space in relationships gives a man room to breathe. On a date, she need not prove herself interesting with endless stories. Sometimes, just a quiet smile, a listening gaze, a pause after speaking. The silence echoes, making the man feel truly seen. Jung stressed that what is forgotten in the dark returns demanding presence. Space is where forgotten things return, a buried dream, an old passion, a part of you never lived. Only when you allow emptiness do you hear that call. Many women lose themselves fearing silence. They rush into new relationships after breakups, into work when their hearts are hollow, into consumption when they feel lacking. But all that only deepens the void. Meanwhile, the one who sits still, faces the emptiness, finds the gem hidden within. In reality, you see this principle in women with lasting magnetism. They are not those always present everywhere, always busy, always loud. They know how to be absent at the right time, to listen more than speak, to leave gaps between meetings, and to respect the space in their own souls. Their unhurriedness makes them attractive, for they radiate the energy of someone who lacks nothing. And the paradox, when they do not rush to fill space, people want to step into the space they create. Space is also a lesson for creativity. Many women in art, work, or personal life worry they must constantly produce ideas, always create to prove worth. But just as land needs rest to regenerate, the soul needs space for ideas to arise. The artist is not always in the studio. Sometimes ideas come as she watches rain through the window. The mother is not valuable only when busy. Sometimes her deepest value is sitting silently beside her child, simply present. Emptiness, then, is not frightening void. It is fertile ground where life longs to sow. When a woman dares to keep space in her schedule, in conversation, in her heart, she creates a quiet invitation. And paradoxically, in her unhurriedness, everything wants to come. Love, opportunity, creativity, and the most genuine connections. Have you ever tried leaving space for yourself, turning off the noise, stepping back from busyness, and then found life quietly bringing you what you once longed for? If you find this lesson meaningful, press like to spread the message. Sometimes, happiness does not come from filling, but from daring to leave empty. Number 7. When you stop seeking meaning, meaning finds you. Have you ever wondered why, at times, the harder you try to find the meaning of life, the emptier you feel? People often believe they must have a grand reason to exist, a glorious career, a great love, a heroic mission. But the very craving to seek meaning traps them in emptiness. For the more they strain to answer, "Why do I live?" the further they drift from the simplest truth. Life is happening here and now. Carl Jung once said that the journey of individuation, becoming oneself, is not a specific destination, but a process. Meaning is not a gift handed at the end of the road, but in the small traces we leave daily. A woman, when she stops chasing ultimate meaning, suddenly realizes meaning is already in each breath, each gaze, each moment of presence. In Jungian therapy, a university professor once shared her journey. For years, she felt restless, as though her life was not big enough. She asked whether she should write a book for recognition or pursue a higher degree to prove her worth. The more she sought meaning, the more exhausted she became. But during a crisis, she stopped. Instead of chasing a distant mission, she focused on each class, each talk with her students. She no longer tried to be a great thinker, but simply a present teacher. Unexpectedly, from that simplicity, she found the deepest meaning. Years later, a student returned, saying her ordinary classes had changed his life. The meaning she once struggled to find had been present all along, in simple moments. Modern psychology distinguishes two types of happiness: hedonic, linked to pleasure and comfort in the present, and eudaimonic, linked to meaning, growth, and connection to something larger. The paradox: when people obsess over finding a grand meaning, they lose the joy of the moment and end up losing both happiness and meaning. Conversely, those who live fully in small experiences, drinking tea, caring for loved ones, doing daily work with devotion, report their lives as deeply meaningful. As Jung suggested, meaning is not something to chase, but something that arises when we dare to be present. Picture an artist obsessed with creating a masterpiece. Pressure makes every stroke awkward, but when he lets go of proving, painting only to listen to himself, the masterpiece appears naturally. Meaning is like a bird. The more you chase, the faster it flies. But if you sit still, open-hearted, it may perch on your shoulder in surprise. Jung emphasized that true meaning does not come from finding life's purpose, but from connecting with the self, the wholeness within. And the self is not a distant ideal, but in simple actions done with awareness. The woman brewing morning tea in peace, the mother listening to her child without checking her phone, the artist holding a brush just to hear his heart. These are the ones touching true meaning. In a rushing world, we forget life does not wait for the big answer to begin. Life is unfolding as you read these words, as you breathe. And perhaps meaning is not what we must pursue, but what we must allow to appear. Thus, when you stop seeking meaning, you realize it has always sought you. It hides in ordinary things: a hug, a family meal, a moment watching clouds. And paradoxically, When you stop straining to be special, you become the embodiment of a meaningful life, for your presence alone touches hearts. Remember, meaning is not a prize after conquering the world, but a seed already inside you. It blossoms when you dare to live fully in each moment, and your peaceful presence becomes the greatest gift to life. Perhaps the most beautiful paradox Jung left us is this. When you stop chasing, when you stop clinging, you become the center of yourself. And that is when everything you ever longed for finds its way back. Not because you proved, but because your presence is enough. A soul that knows how to release becomes fertile ground where love, opportunity, and meaning naturally bloom. The woman who emerges from this journey no longer ties her fate to others' eyes, no longer shackled by fear of loss. She shines quietly as a source of peace, illuminating and uplifting all who touch her. And that peace, rare and precious, makes her more magnetic than any outward beauty. If you feel these words are whispering to you that happiness is not something to chase but to allow, then this is your moment to pause, to listen, and to grant yourself the freedom to live. And if this video speaks to you, don't forget to share it so other women may also find this message. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next profound journeys with us, where you will learn how to stop needing to hold on and begin to let everything come to you.